Cloud Factory V1 was about raw performance, and Cloud Factory V2 was about polish, then Cloud Factory V3 is about the experience. Not just the tower, but the whole setup. And if you had told me back on December 25th of 2018, when I started this project, that it would take over a year for this project to be completed, I would have believed you. But I doubt I would have ever embarked on this journey, which by far has been the largest, most complex, and time-consuming project I've ever worked on. Which is why I think it's fitting that this time I actually walk you through the thinking and process that resulted in this, frankly, pretty damn good final product. With that being said, I know I'll end up glossing over a lot for the sake of time, so the comment section is open for any questions you may have. But without any further ado, come along for the ride. I first began thinking about Cloud Factory V3 back in November of 2018, with the goal of fine-tuning the look of the system, which meant buying all the RGB I could get my hands on, sleeved cables, silver thumbscrews, and a vertical GPU riser, a simple aesthetic tweak. So after a hideously expensive cable mod order, and copious amounts of RGB fans and strips from Amazon, it was time to take V2 apart and create V3, which 8 hours and 1.2 terabytes of time-lapse footage later, it had been. Specifically, I installed a set of Pro extension cables in white, with additional white sleeved cables for the front USB 3.0 cable, as well as for all the fans to the motherboard. For the RGB strips, I went with Corsair magnetic strips to match 5 new Corsair LL120 fans. I installed new silver thumbscrews for all the external glass panels, and I used CableMod's GPU riser to show off my admittedly aging GTX 1070, that has the side effect of making display cables an absolute nightmare. But overall, I am very impressed with how clean Cloud Factory is now, as long as you ignore the back. And with that, I was ready to make another simple Cloud Factory video. But then... it was just as I was finishing the tower that I learned that I would be moving, and as a result would be granted the opportunity to essentially craft a custom room, and by extension a custom home for Cloud Factory. I immediately started work on the plans, optimizing for not only gaming, but also content creation and other creative work. And after about 6 revisions, optimizing for desk width, livability, an ensuite bathroom, as well as playable VR area for a newly acquired Oculus Rift S, I decided upon the final layout. Executing on this plan, however, was easier said than done. Demolition was first, removing a closet space, popcorn ceiling, and existing carpet, followed by construction, drywalling, electrical work, a larger window, repainting, recarpeting, lighting, data, and getting a bathroom built. The room was finally complete, but this story is far from over. When given the opportunity to create as custom a setup as possible, I knew that meant putting as much attention towards creative content creation as I did towards gaming, which, due to my NLE of choice, Final Cut Pro 10, meant that this setup would have to house 2 systems. Cloud Factory itself, of course, but also my primary video editing machine, a 2014 15-inch MacBook Pro, aptly named Cloud Factory. To do this, I knew I would need a custom-designed desk that hopefully would also fit the cloud theme. 2 things came together to make this happen. First, my dad found 2 spare white IKEA Alex units to use as legs, and then we found a large piece of white glossy kitchen cabinet laminate in the as-is section, once again at IKEA, for the desktop, that my dad then cut down to size. Also dremeling custom holes in the back to use as cable management. Layout-wise, a 3-monitor setup worked best. One primary display in the center connected to both computers, with a color-accurate monitor to the left plugged exclusively into Cloud Factory, and a secondary display for gaming above plugged into Cloud Factory. The display for Cloud Factory turned out to be more difficult than anticipated. After considerable research, however, I landed on a used Apple Thunderbolt display that would work natively with my laptop, and that got positive recommendations from both professional editors and colorists, having full coverage of the sRGB color space, and a calibrated Delta E of 1.63, which would make it suitable for professional color use. For which I attached the USB-powered and industry-standard Medialight bias lighting strip to make it truly professional. And continuing with the industry standard, I painted the walls of the room antique tin, which was the closest to 18% or middle gray, commonly available, in a flat sheen around the desk and eggshell for the rest of the room. with the ceiling painted the same color but twice as bright. And for lighting, I decided upon Philips Hue Color Plus Ambience in diffused sconces in order to light the room as indirectly and evenly as possible, with an adjustable color temperature of 6500K for video editing, but 2700K for everyday use. As far as the other two displays, the primary is a BenQ Zoe XL2730 that I've had for years that runs at 1440p 144Hz, and above that is a spare 24-inch 1080p Samsung monitor that my dad had. Both of these displays are on a vertical 2-monitor arm. Mounted to the wall above the displays are a pair of studio monitors that my dad graciously gifted to me that are just plain better than headphones for video editing. These speakers are then plugged into a cheap Chinese amp that works perfectly and even has Bluetooth support, and then are placed on some generic glass wall-mounted shelves. Next was to finalize the Cloud Factory side. To raise up the Thunderbolt display, my dad made a custom monitor stand using cabinet handles and the leftover desktop, and I decided I would dock the laptop in the top Alex drawer on the left. To ensure adequate cooling for the laptop, I installed two 120mm USB fans in the bottom of the drawer, both blowing upwards to provide fresh air and to cool the bottom of the laptop. At idle and for burst loads, the drawer can be safely closed. However, for sustained loads, an open drawer is best, and allows the CPU to even turbo slightly, even running cooler than in open air, all while being barely audible. And to make docking as easy as possible, I used only the I/O on the power side of the laptop, using both Thunderbolt 2 ports for displays, with the USB and 3.5mm jack being extended to the drawer below, where I can then choose between speakers or headphones, with the speaker amp being right there. Also in the second drawer, there is a 4-port USB hub for docking up to 2 external mass storage drives, powering the cooling fans, and an extra USB port if needed. Moving to the Cloud Factory side, on top I have my microphone's phantom power supply, a 3.5mm out to plug my headphones into, as well as where I store my headphones, with underneath 2 micro USB cables, one for my Xbox controller, and the other for charging my gaming mouse as well as plugging in the wireless receiver. And on the desk, I'm still using my HC Man keyboard, but I've upgraded my mouse from my aging and glitchy Razer Death Adder Chroma to a wireless Logitech G703 Lightspeed, which I frankly love, placing it on a Luxcom's RGB soft desk pad. For audio, my headphones are the Sennheiser HD 598s, and my microphone is the Neewer NW700 on a Neewer stand plugged into a Neewer Phantom power supply, going into an XLR to USB converter, and finally into Cloud Factory. Beneath my desk is where the ridiculous amount of cables needed are found, and I'm overall pretty happy with the cable management, as they can't be seen without bending down from anywhere in the room, and are relatively orderly. And finally, stepping back to the virtual reality space, I love my Rift S, and with the retractable hooks on the ceiling to keep the cable out of the way and weight lifted, it has resulted in a fantastic VR experience, especially with my larger play space. Which finally concludes the setup of Cloud Factory V3, which only leaves After taking over a year to complete, I am frankly relieved that this project is finally done, and also very happy with how it turned out. With that being said, 2019 was certainly a good year for PC components, and Ryzen 3000 is particularly appealing when compared to my somewhat aging 6600K. Furthermore, my 3TB hard drive works fine, but I've begun to start needing to delete games to install new ones, so upgrading to an 8TB drive would be nice to once again be able to have my entire Steam library installed at once. And finally, Cloud Factory is really starting to show its nearly 6 years of being my primary computer, so an upgrade in that department would also be welcome. But those are all things for another day and another video. So thank you so much for coming along this ride with me, because it certainly has been a long journey, and I hope it was at the very least entertaining. But until next time, this has been Cloud Factory V3.